Здравствуйте guys, Anne Lehman here. As most of you know, I'm a university student currently studying history, and in the university system of the school I'm in, there are a certain amount of gender and ethnic studies credits that people have to take in order to graduate. So I made the horrible decision of not only taking those classes the first semester that I was in college, but both at one time. I was barely 17 and I was really just a dumb kid, and I'm sorry to say I bought into this for about 5 minutes and they were the stupidest of my entire life. I don't know what I was thinking. This gender studies class that I took was actually specifically about gender and sexuality in Asia mostly. It was a 10-ish person class with one guy in it, and the professor was a lady, of course, and the ethnic studies class that I took was much larger. It was about maybe like a 300-person lecture, and the professor was a non-tenured French guy. The topics that we were supposed to talk about in the gender studies class were about like sati and child brides, arranged marriages, sex selection, abortion, and infanticide, and actual problems where feminism is probably actually needed. Somehow the conversation would always get back to American women and the perceived slights that we face. Most of them having to do with the debunked wage gap and the rape culture myths. One time I think we were talking about how being called the C or the B word was the end of the world. I do think that feminism was at one point needed in the country when women couldn't vote or most women couldn't own property, but we American women, I don't think, have problems that feminism needs to fix. I think that women are doing much better than men currently, and that's because of the system that we live in. It was like the women in this class thought their problems were just as bad as, like, India's. There was one time where we were discussing gender, and the people in the class all believe in multiple genders, and they just wanted to completely reject the binary system. I one day decided to be a little brave, and I raised my hand and I said, do you think maybe the concept of two genders should be kept for if someone's going into the hospital and they need urgent care and they have a pain in their lower abdomen, then maybe we should keep that concept because then they would get care much quicker, much more quickly if the doctors knew whether they were a biological female or male, so they know what to look for. The entire room spoke up at once and started heckling me and just asking me so many, like, I could not hear anything just besides being heckled. The professor had to take control of the room and say, you know, they should just have a checklist. So, you know, he would say, I have a uterus, I have mammary glands, or something that wastes more time, rather than just checking off a box that states whether you have 2 X chromosomes or only 1. It was purely meant to virtue signal. It solved nothing. It actually solved nothing. I think that trans women understand that they are biological men. I tried to use science in a gender studies class. That was my bad. My bad. I should have known. There was this one girl in class that did a presentation on bindis, and she said that it was neat and reassuring that Western women thought that it was neat and they wanted to also partake in this part of the culture. Another girl raised her hand and practically accosted her for she accused her of ignoring cultural appropriation. And the best part? There were Indian girls in the class, and most of them said that they did not care. When I took this class, I don't think that the gender fluid whatever was created yet, but there was this woman in class that claimed to be demisexual, which instead of just saying bisexual, and that you like to know a person before you have a relationship with them, you're trying to find a way to unnecessarily make things difficult so you can act morally superior when the average person knows that you're talking bull. One of the more ridiculous parts of the class was when we were learning about the awful things that happened in India, and we weren't allowed to say that it was a reflection on the culture. As in, we weren't allowed to say it was bad that women felt the need to throw themselves on their husband's funeral pyres in India, because all cultures are equal. A culture where it's okay to kill your female kids because you really wanted a boy is not equal to an egalitarian culture, and me saying that is politically incorrect. For the ethnic studies class, the professor did the same thing, where no culture is better than the other, but I at least agreed with him twice in the whole semester, and not 0 times. But we did learn about some racist ideologies like the study of whiteness, which is now a class in UW-Madison. and institutional racism, etc., we were told that El Cheapo is racist because you're demeaning the Spanish language, and that there's nothing wrong with forcing women to wear hijabs. And the professor once tried to convince us that capitalism was evil because people in China are having a rough time. It was a wild ride. I learned nothing besides how to be guilt-tripped for something I didn't do. I learned that people are very surprised to hear that I think third-wave feminism is not only unnecessary but patronizing, and it accomplishes nothing besides the opposite of its intentions. My main problem with these classes is that if your viewpoint is different than that of the professor, you were either prevented from speaking and not allowed to finish your point, or you were humiliated in front of the entire class because the professor has more status than you and is allowed to say, oh, you're just a stupid college student, you don't know what you're talking about. The ethnic studies professor, for example, would say he encouraged discussion in the class or different viewpoints, and then as soon as you spoke up and had a different viewpoint, you would raise your hand, he would let you finish, and then he would say, this is why you're wrong. In the gender studies class, if it seemed as though I was going to say something that was contrary to the groupthink, the professor would actually stop me and say I wasn't allowed to finish my point. And I think that it's just, I was used to it at this point. I went to public schools. It wasn't unusual to just have a liberal point of view presented to you, but it was disheartening, and I'm really glad that I joined a conservative group on campus because I don't know how I would do it otherwise. I highly suggest doing it if you're a conservative in college right now. That's really all I had to say today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. New videos are coming. I don't know when, but they're coming, I promise. Alright, paka guys.